Okay. So Sham's going to give you some input as well. But do you want to go over Mannoroth first? Or do you want to go over Archimonde first?
Let's go Mannoroth.
Alright.
So what spec do you go on Mannoroth? Go Final Verdict and Light's Hammer?
I guess Schomberg and...
I
Do
haven't
this.
gotten around to Mythic Mannoroth yet. I was mainly planning on going Final Verdict and probably Execution Sentence. What do you think of Light's Hammer?
I don't know when they pop the ring anymore. Like, I used to go Light's Hammer.
Yeah, our ring usage, it does vary depending on how many buyers we have. Typically, if we have 2 buyers, then we'll go with the safe strat. I mean, there's different alternatives. So we could potentially skip a Doom Lord by blowing the ring up on him and not get Marks of Doom, which would be nice as well. But yeah, it depends. It depends on timings. We still sort of do the ramp up strat where we'll hold and then we'll wait for the imps and then and then push with the ring up. But I mean, it really doesn't matter. The only time it matters is the final push into phase 4.
For Rets, it kind of matters when we pop our rings and whatnot, because we have 3 sets.
Right.
We want to use them as best as possible, especially on the imps. So if you guys wait, like say the first imps, for example, and if you're playing Final Verdict, you want to, and you guys wait until the first imps, you want to pop your wings like 7 seconds before the imps come out. That way you'll have about
7
a
seconds.
massive damage boost with your 4Ps, and then you want to build up a Divine Storm, obviously, with your Final Verdict buff, so you can just burn down those imps as fast as possible. You with me so far, Shadow?
Yeah, I'm just writing a little bit here.
Okay. Do you understand how that works, though? What I just said?
Yeah, because you'll have the buff stacks from your actual, from the 4-piece, and then on top of that, you're going to have the Final Verdict buff, and if we get lucky with a proc, the Divine Storm Empowered would be great, but even without it, it's still pretty good with the buffed Final Verdict.
And how much Holy Power do you want to go in to those imps?
Preferably myself, I would go in with 5, and then if I already have my Final Verdict up, or my Final Verdict buffed up, then I can quickly Divine Storm, get another charge of Holy Power, and probably get off another Divine Storm before they're dead.
Yeah. That's if you wait for the imps for the very first spawn. If they decide to pop the ring right when Mannoroth spawns, then I would say just pop a wings. Obviously, you won't have the damage boost from your 4-piece for the imps, but you still have Avenging Wrath up.
Alright.
Other than that, Sparty, did you talk to him about how to soak?
No, so I mean, we haven't really covered Mannoroth much at all.
Okay.
So tell me about what Shadow, about the encounter, phase by phase. Phase 1, what are you doing?
Yeah, I went through I mainly watched from what I got from your stream, and from the looks of it, it was mainly focused on mechanics, and there's no real DPS at all that's imperative to the fight right now, up until that push phase like you were talking about earlier. But phase 1, it looked like, was mainly things like interrupts, making sure that imps go down, things like that, but I wasn't really sure on positioning or anything like that with melee, watching from your point of view.
I mean, positioning wise, you need to be standing near the boss so that the Death Knights are able to grip, because if you're standing really far away, then the imps spawn near players. So you should be standing near the boss so the grip can be adequately gripped to the statue or to the boss, depending on which phase.
Usually, for melee, in the first phase, it's on the left side of the boss.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, it's always the left side. And then for the later phases, we do flip the boss around. So let's say for the Wrath phase, so phase 3 technically, we have the boss flipped around, and then we're grouping right behind the boss as well.
Okay. And I was also looking at, I think Unbreakable Spirit, you said, especially for this fight, to be using our... Where is it? Right there. DP on every one of the... It's gaze, right?
I mean, every single
purple
gaze. Exactly. Since DPS is not a huge issue, for all those phases, you should really be helping soak those gazes. And make sure your DPS popped. And again, pop that DP prior to gaze going out. So, do you have the weak core for gaze, like the countdown?
I believe I do. I took all the strings from the forums and copied those in, and there was one for Mannoroth. I'm not sure if it's on there, but I can double check. I'm pretty sure it would be on there. I don't see why it wouldn't.
I don't know if it's on there. Do you have the weak aura for to not interrupt the Shadow Bolt volley?
Unless it was on the page, on the Death Jesters page, it had all the weak auras strings, then I do not.
Okay, one sec. So that's Imp spawning, Gaze coming. Yeah, the Gaze incoming is pretty much the same one there. Wrath markers. Yeah, so those ones do count it down, and then you can, to pop DP prior to it going out. But again, positioning is key. So in terms of interrupting the Doom Lord, do you know which ones are important, which ones are not important, or which ones we don't interrupt?
Negative, because I do, even just watching yesterday, like, I know a lot of interrupts were going a little crazy, I guess, and that was causing a lot of issues, so I couldn't really tell, just from watching the stream, which ones were or weren't supposed to be hit.
So the way it typically works is the first one is interrupted. I believe it's the second one, based off this weak aura as well, that is not interrupted, and that is the one that pops the Dooms. And for the third one, either the Doom Lord's dead, or you're getting another interrupt.
Okay.
Sometimes there is a second cast though before the Dooms go out, so you still have to watch.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, if there's Dooms out, then the Dooms get out quickly, and then you let that cast go to pop the Dooms. But it's important not to interrupt it. Last night we had a wipe. We lost 3 people because either Ariana or Psycho hit it with an interrupt.
Okay, and then on the spreadsheet, I noticed the interrupt order was Panzer, Sham, Lurchi. Is that going to be kind of standing, or are you guys going to keep updating angry assignments for that?
It'll be updated with angry assignments. The spreadsheet, it's not, it has the basic strats, but angry assignments will have the better interrupts. It'll be Ariana or Brain Dead assigning interrupts there.
Okay.
Do you know how Wrath Soaking works?
I do not believe I do, to the best that I could. I went over, one of the videos I looked was the Fat Boss Guide, and there's just a lot of information in there, but at the same time, because of buyers and because of different strats that you guys do, I didn't really get a whole grasp on what we're specifically dealing with and what we're not. Like, for example, we don't really deal with Iskar's little bomb thing he does, where he places those on people and you have to run to him. That hasn't been an issue, but that was brought up in things like Fat Boss, so I wasn't sure.
Right. So do you know how the mechanic works, the Wrath?
Negative.
So it goes out to 5 players. It goes out to 2 melee, 2 ranged, and a healer. And that person does not take any damage, but they have 30 stacks of a debuff that needs to be removed at some point. I mean, ideally removed. But
40.
Is it 40? I thought it was 30.
I don't know.
Anyway, there's a lot of stacks, and basically the only way to get rid of your stacks is drop them off to somebody else, but then that person takes damage, and the damage ramps up higher and higher and higher depending on how many stacks they have. As a melee, you really have to watch your positioning as well for Mannoroth, where if you're standing too close to somebody else, you get too many stacks, you're going to die. Paladins are great because you can soak a few stacks, then hit DP, and then once DP is about to expire, hit your bubble, and then you soak even more stacks, so that it's less raid damage overall.
Okay. I understand that. And that's going to be in Phase 1, or is that going to be throughout the entire fight?
That is Phase 3, when rats go out.
Phase 3.
And then, depending on which side you're on, I mean, we communicated as well, depending on, whether you're the left melee, right melee, whatever, and those ones are then soaked. But you need to make sure you're in the right spot. Braindead's point of view should have it as well.
Alright, I'll make sure I go through and rewatch his video for that one. So I was mainly in your channel last night for Mannoroth.
Yeah, so then, his perspective will show it, because I know he was soaking for sure, because his HP was dropping. So yeah, watch his perspectives of Mannoroth. Maybe on the kill, I can't remember which one. And then in Phase 4, in terms of soaking groups, you will likely not be. I can't remember if you're assigned or not, but yeah, pop your DP as well when you're going, because it'll only be 2 people soaking each gaze. You want to have a loose lateral clump just behind the boss. However, if you do have an immunity, we want people with immunities to run off, a little bit further back. So on my perspective, when you watched it, you saw me inch myself further back away from the raid, making it really clear that if gaze was on me, I would bubble my own. And the same thing with you, if gaze is on you, you would bubble your own.
Okay.
But that one's all communication. There's only really 2 rounds of gazes. Beyond that, it just don't get knocked off for Shadow Force, imps, that kind of stuff.
Make sure you use the puddles during the Shadow Force, and you're jumping during it.
All right.
Jump forward while it's
yeah.
going up.
Our 6th wipe, I think, on Mannoroth last night, we didn't have enough people soaking those gazes, so the puddles were really, really tiny, and people could not use them for slowing them down.
Okay, I see.
Do you have any other questions specifically on Mannoroth?
Nothing really specific to him. Just got to learn those. It's going to be a little bit of a learning curve because this is one of the fights where I just have very little experience Mythic-wise on.
Right. I mean, take a look at Sham's old logs as well from like December, and see when he's popping wings relative to imps dying, that kind of stuff. His DP usage, everything, positioning.
Just make sure you go into the last phase with at least 2 wing charges.
All right.
Yeah, that's definitely when you want to have it for the burn. Exactly. Yes. Like we're gonna be ringing. We're ringing right on the transition. We're gonna have a big DPS burn at that point. That's where we're gonna pop hero and everything. Make sure you have your pot, like all your big stuff for that ring transition, and then when the ring is up again after the second Shadow Force.
Use your wings for the very first transition with the first ring, and then after the first Shadow Force, use your second pair of wings. So the gaze goes out, and then you get Shadow Force right after, and then once you come back from the Shadow Force, use your second set of wings.
Okay.
And a little tip for the Marks of Gul'dan, usually you can soak about 4 to 5 stacks just by yourself, like with no DP or anything. You can use your health potion if you just want to make sure and stuff, so you stay alive. And then use your DP up until about 12, 13, 14 stacks, and then you bubble until like 20 or something.
Yeah, so
that way you'll soak at least half of the Gul'dan marks.
Exactly, and that's what I do when I soak. Paladins are great at it, so I'll be healing myself, flashing myself. Once I get a few stacks, I'll pop my DP. DP's about to expire, pop my bubble for another 7-8 seconds, and then Shadow Force hits.
Yes.
Okay.
And for melee, there's 2 stack points for melee that the marks go to, and if you stay at that stack point when Shadow Force goes out, you'll get knocked off. So before Shadow Force goes out, you need to run into the boss a bit to make sure if you get Shadow Force, you'll be run against the pillar.
Yeah, I mean, that's where you want to be knocked back against. Assume Shadow Force is going to hit you in that phase because it does only target 3 people, but you do have to shift in towards the boss's tail so it knocks you backwards.
Yes.
And then beyond that,
Right.
stacking for the gazes, it's pretty much on that line where the portal is, and the third gaze in phase 1-2 is on the moon marker. So you need to proactively be in the right position and stand in that spot. What you don't want to do is, I don't believe you want to pop your speed of light prior to getting into moon, because your speed of light will be active during a gaze. At least I'm pretty sure it will be. Because I know speed bursts work after the fact as well. So if you get a shield from Primetime who's running body and soul, then your gaze will run significantly faster.
Okay, I see.
You would use speed of light on that one?
Well, no, you wouldn't. Well, I use speed of light on that fight for sure.
Yeah, just go long arm of the law.
Oh, okay, well, there you go. Okay. Any other questions about that one?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. So let's touch on Archimonde here, phase 1. So do you know the strat that we're doing?
See, okay, so I was watching it from Braindead's point of view from last week's kill. And what I saw was the thing that really confused me was just how the communication goes out mainly for the rots in phase one.
Okay,
Or
let's go. Yeah, let's go phase one at a time. So phase one is what?
phase one looks like Doomfire soaks, and that's all I'm seeing in the strat. And from what I saw from his point of view, it just kind of went very quickly.
So are you soaking Doomfires?
Looks like Ganor, Indy, and Primetime.
Okay, but based off the show that we do right now for the burn strat, are you supposed to be soaking the Doomfires?
I did not see him soaking Doomfires. I'm not sure if he is or not.
Yeah, so
Which would apply to me as well, as melee.
right. So Primetime is the only one soaking Doomfire. We should only get one. We shouldn't even get a Shadowfell Burst. We should burn the boss prior to Shadowfell Burst coming out, which means you're blowing your cooldowns, you're blowing everything. We're ringing, we're using hero right at the start. It needs to be, a massive, massive burst on the boss initially.
All right. And then it looks like from what I also saw was I know it's also a phase ahead, but the chains too was another big question.
Yeah, we'll go through it. Phase one, like in the early burn, are you switching to the Death Collar?
Have a good one.
Looking, it looks like the Death Color just got nuked, so I'm guessing someone is. I'm not sure if you want all of us switching or if you're only having specific people switch.
What do the logs show?
Just one moment, I'll pull those up.
Okay, no, I'm not looking at Death Collar. Let me know when you find it.
Yep, just pulling up the Death Color real quick.
It's there in Mumble as well.
Looks like only really Panzer and Indy. Ariana did it quite a bit too, and Ganar, but it doesn't look like there's a really huge hard switch to it.
Right, so is anybody actually switching to it?
Probably just cleave based on the
Right,
fact that
so
it's warriors.
we're just cleaving down the very first one, correct? And that one lasts, it lasts about 30 seconds, whatever. It's not a priority. We do use cooldowns on the tank, but the majority of the damage should be straight up on the boss.
Alright, understood.
So that second log there that I just posted, that is the initial phase one burn. Obviously Shadow Priests are pretty low, but everybody should be quite high up there. When was Schomberg's last raid?
Yeah, that's probably so long ago. Oh, you don't do the deeps that these guys do anymore.
Sham, are you using Unending Hunger for this, or are you using...
Hunger, yeah.
Okay.
Let's try December.
Class Drink, it kind of blows until you get a mythic one. And even then, it kind of still sucks.
Yeah, unless it's purely single target.
Trying to pull up a log here with Sham.
Okay.
Heroic, so runs November.
Like Wednesday, December 16th.
Does that one have Sham?
Yes, it's last kill on logs for him.
So you could just pull that up. No, that's heroic.
Yeah, it's the 16th.
Is that mythic or heroic?
That's mythic.
Oh, yeah, I guess it is.
God, my ranks suck now. Where'd all my rank ones go?
Where'd my rank ones go? So you can see there the burn that Schomberg did. He did 10.28 million. Right, like that was his burn on the boss in phase 1. Yeah, you should be pushing high numbers like that, 246,000 DPS in the initial phase 1 burst, which is, you know, the first 30-40 seconds of the fight.
Alright, so it sounds like just to pop everything and really go hard at the boss.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a couple Divine Storms there on the Death Caller. Yeah, Hand of Light, Seal of Righteous, whatever. But for the most part, it's just, you know, it's a straight up burn on the boss. We need to push him as quickly as possible.
Make sure you're still on the right side of the boss, though. On the right foot.
Yeah, positioning is really key here. One thing you definitely don't want is to be touching the Doomfire, or like standing in the fire. Do you know how that mechanic works?
That's just the stacks of the debuff the fire gives you. It's basically a dot, isn't it?
Right.
And it stacks up the more you stand in it.
Right. What else?
That's all I've noticed from it, from at least my time on Archimonde and Heroic. I'm not sure if there's a new thing in Mythic for it.
Yeah, on Mythic, once the fire, like the tick drops off, it spawns a new fire puddle wherever you're standing. So if you pick up a fire stack, 1 stack, 10 stacks, doesn't matter how many, wherever you're standing or wherever you drop it off, you're going to drop a big fire puddle in that area, which is really important. It's going to cost you a lot of DPS if you accidentally stand in the fire and then you know, you drop a big fire in the melee, then everybody's with the fire now. So basically you soak them up. You know, that's what we have Primetime for. He's supposed to run into the fire, pick up all the stacks. Now there's no fire on the ground.
Okay, I see.
Do you know how Allure works on Mythic?
No, I don't believe I went over that one. I just thought it just went the normal fire flying.
If there's any, like for every stack of fire that is on the ground, the raid takes damage, which is why we soak things.
Okay.
So we finished phase 1. Phase 2 is Rots and Chains. So what questions do you have about that one?
Mainly positioning, just like it looks like everyone has a clear position and that the routes aren't overlapping, but I wasn't quite sure if you guys, like I see the pictures in the spreadsheet, but I wasn't sure if there was a certain setup or if there's just kind of people grab a position kind of like in Tyrant and stick to it.
No, it's not like
usually there's like a rough semicircle of melee. Like we somewhat know our positions, or at least when I used to do it. I was on like the rightish middle kind of area. But during like the burn strat, it's kind of like a mess. But you still want to stick to your area.
Okay, so then I would go about it the same way we do, kind of like with a Tyrant, where in phase 1 we're going to spread the best we can without being overlapping and just kind of choose a spot.
Right, so just pick a spot and stay with it. Do you know how the lasers work?
What can I do for you?
I know they all come out at the same time, but I wasn't sure about if there's anything significantly special where, like, they're doing some new, like a secondary debuff or anything along those lines.
Well, how does it work on Heroic?
Basically, chains goes from one person to the next, that person gets another person, and so on.
Right. So in the same way, it goes from one person to another person. Oh, that's enough. but it's hitting multiple people or your entire raid essentially. Chloe, that's enough. Yeah, so it's going from one person to another, and I mean, it crisscrosses all over the place. Do you know how to recognize whether you're standing in somebody else's? So you're going to have like one on you regardless, but do you know how to see if you have somebody else's on you?
I believe I kept seeing a radar come up that was showing a bunch of lines in the streams I was watching.
Right? So there's a lot of lines.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure what add-on was doing that. I'm pretty sure I probably had the add-on.
So there are weak auras for it, as well as I believe DBM does it now. Yeah, show the HUD map for Shackled Torment, Shadowful Burst, Rot Chaos. So it should be under DBM as well, but there are weak auras and everything that show it, and you see those on my screen as well. Yeah, you'll see it for the Shackled Torment, which is the green one. But basically, you find your spot, you stay in it, and if your thing is red, well then you take a lot of damage because somebody else's lines is overlapping on you. You should only ever get hit by one laser at once ever. It's also potentially good to save your DP for if you do have a shackle on you. But yeah, it's one. Now when you're shifting, let's say somebody else's line is overlapping on you, do not shift left and right. You have to shift relative to where your beam is coming from. So if it's going across the room, you don't want to shift to the side. You want to follow your line.
Okay, so it's almost like kind of similar to Gorfiend, how when there's a shared fate, you follow the line. You just want to go straight towards the person until the line is no longer red.
Right, but you control that line, and if you shift yourself over 2 yards to the left or 2 yards to the right, your laser is now hitting somebody else because you decided to dodge somebody else's, and that causes a domino effect. So you have to find your spot, stick with it, and then just adjust along the line.
Okay.
And the best way to do this, believe it or not, is actually a keyboard turn.
Can you explain to him?
It's hard to explain this.
Chloe, that's not.
Okay, so when you strafe and stuff like that, I don't know how you move, but you always have the chance to move out of your to move your beam, obviously. And if you keyboard turn, you can obviously pick, or you can see which direction the beam is actually coming from, and so you can turn your character towards that beam, and then just keyboard turn back or keyboard turn forward in case there are other beams coming in with your beam. I know it's hard to understand, but
Okay, so it kind of sounds like you're trying to say just kind of line up your character head on with the beam.
yes, you got to recognize where your beam is coming from, basically.
Okay.
And in case there's no way out of 3 beams or something, the best way to use your DP is at the very last second, so you can hit, or so you can have DP for 2 beams, because it'll cover a next one after that one.
Okay, so last second.
Yes, so you can cover the first and second one, or the second and third one, because there's 3 beams in total that goes out.
Yeah,
All
so
right, I think we're good on beams.
Yeah, so it's 3 rounds. Just make sure, when you look at these videos, and when you see my perspective or the kills, you see me strafing along that line. I don't do the keyboard turning method. I'll just, I'll find which way I'm facing relative to that one, and I will just backpedal backwards. Backpedaling not ideal, but I'll just backpedal backwards, and that way, you could still continue DPSing the boss and facing the boss.
And the other thing I saw that kind of confused me a little was I was watching from Braindead's point of view from last week's kill, and he had the rot. He also had the chain shackled torment on him. So,
right.
Are you guys going at a specific time for your shackled torment, or is it just when you shift the boss? Because it looks like he didn't break until the boss shifted, and then he ran off with the boss and let it break then.
Right, so how does the mechanic work on Mythic?
Shackle Torment, I'm unsure, but it's probably something added on top of the normal, or the normal/heroic method, where Shackle Torment's going to do damage to you over time. Once you break it, does damage to the raid.
Close. So it's not raid-wide damage. It's people within that 25 yards. So if you even look at the dungeon journal, it shows that the range of Unleashed Torment is limited to 25 yards, which is the explosion. It's 1.1 million damage to everybody that was standing inside the shackle area.
Okay, so I see the radar for the shackled area coming up. So are you guys just shifting the boss, letting everyone else shift, and waiting, and once everyone's out of range, then breaking?
Well, do you remember what Bran was doing last week?
I'm looking at the video right now, and it looks like he follows the boss with the rest of you guys, and he waited a stutter set. He did a stutter set for a second to let someone else get out of range, and then let it break.
Right, but like when we were doing it, how do you know when to break?
Looks like just when the boss ran off.
Right, but if the boss just runs off, like, what if there's people standing in your area?
And the area is clear.
Right, you want to make sure the area is clear. But Bran also counts down 3, 2, 1 break, and that break, like, you want to, position yourself 20 yards away from any shackles. Even if you lose DPS, I mean, you're going to lose DPS either way. But even if you shift yourself out, 20 yards away from your point of origin or point of the shackle, because then you only need to run 10 yards to go break it. This is when you would use do you guys use long arm on this one?
Yeah, still long arm.
Yeah, so you hit your judgment, get that speed burst, and that's when you would break it. But you need to wait for that actual break call, and then run the correct direction. But now it's going to be up to your brain. What if somebody else is out of position? So if you were to follow the boss right now, you're going to die because somebody else's shackles are in that way. They were out of position, which means you might have to shift the complete wrong direction. And just to avoid their shackles. Like, you cannot be standing in their shackles at all during that. I mean, you also can't die, right? So you need to watch your positioning, so there's going to be lasers going out, and this is really important in the second set. So we're going to get Rot, then we're going to get, I think it's a Shackle, then Rot, and then Rot again. And for that one, that's make sure you have your DP in case you have a shackle. Watch where you're standing because there's going to be lasers. There's going to be little fell dogs running around as well trying to hit you. So you really need to watch your positioning. And even though there's a fell dog under you, you just need to help kill it. I mean, it's going to do about 120,000 damage to you. But you cannot die, because if you die while having shackles, the entire raid's going to die. Okay. Because we're all standing 25, 30 yards from your shackle, because we're all that close.
And in case you get a shackle as well and you need to bubble, don't.
Okay, because that'll just pop the shackle as well.
It goes boom.
Alright, I think those were the two major things I really found to be the most, the big changes between Heroic to Mythic that I really need to go over.
Okay.
For that phase, at least.
Okay, so that's much of the phase until 40%. And then what happens at 40%?
That's where he pops down to the new phase, or next phase, and you kind of go down to the little, the Banish Realm, or whatever I guess they call it. And he's going to be back at 50%, and it looks like you guys have a different type of dance pattern set up. And also there's I saw it kept spawning, and it would either go on Psycho or Deadman was a crystal. I think, what was it? Focus of something, Chaos, something
right.
Along those lines.
Okay, so step by step, Dark Conduit, how does that work?
Just fast forward. I'm honestly not sure, just by watching the video.
Okay, I mean, like, what the guide videos? What did they say that this mechanic does?
So that was Dark Conduit?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find the video I used. Okay, so that explains where the purple balls come from that I've been seeing in Braindead's video, and it's a random range getting hit by just targeted by the boss, and this thing
Okay.
spawns on him.
So how does that affect you?
Sorry, 1 second.
Be good.
Alright, from what I'm reading, it's not... If you're near it, it's going to do some splash damage, and outside that, as long as they're not overlapping, they're not going to explode or do any type of crazy damage to us.
Supply only the
Right. So the Dark Conduits only target ranged and healers, which means when we transition out of the boss, you'll be cleaning up any other Death Callers, Orpheans, whatever, and then getting straight right on the boss. So it's not really a mechanic that you need to be aware of. It's it's only for the ranged and healers. So we transition to that phase, and then what happens?
So it looks like once the transition starts, there was those spawn out, and then there was, it looks like a fire pattern came out, and there's a lot of dancing that had to do with that. But
Before that, it's before that.
before that, let me see what I was looking at.
So before the dance pattern.
Yep, just trying to isolate his video a little bit more. Did the focused crystal thing come out before that?
The first one may. I'm going to check here on my video.
Yes, it does. Crystal spawns before the first dance.
Yeah.
And it looks like that focused a tank. The first one, though, focused on, I believe it was focused on Dead Man from what I saw. And they just kind of, Braindead switched over, and there was a hard switch to kill it, but then the Source of Chaos. Yep, that was on Dead Man, and they did a hard switch to it, and then it looked like he kind of ignored the second one. I wasn't sure if it was just to be cleaved down, or if there was something that Psycho could do about it, or if there were assigned groups.
Okay, we're gonna go through my video here step by step.
Okay, let me pull yours up then.
There it is in Mumble Chat. And forward to 30 minutes in 30 seconds.
Got it.
And let me know when you're ready.
Alright, we're at 30-30.
Okay, so the first thing that happens there is dark conduits are spawning. So you see me at range there, I throw my hammer on the Dreadstalker, and waiting for the conduits to spawn. Obviously I start shifting away from any of them, because if they overlap, the raid explodes. And then I'm using my speed of light, I'm going to go over to my spot, so you'll be assigned a specific spot. Mine is front right. So their markers go out first, that's the ability I was looking for. Markers go out first. If it's not on you, you are behind the marker. If you are marked, then you get right on that marker. So you get knocked back, and that mechanic works where based on how many people are standing there. Yeah, so then Infernals spawn, wait for them to get gripped, then they're going to get stunned. Infernals work the exact same way in every other difficulty. They should be focused down, by you as well. Infernals finish up here, then the first focused crystal, and the first one we are going to kill. Yeah, we don't have hero, we don't have ring on that one either, but yeah, that one is focused down initially, and then we deal with the dance. So you should have these dance patterns memorized based off the 4 type of patterns, whether it's left, right, left, or D, or the fucked up one, but proactive and proper positioning is really key. Then Void Stars are spawning here next. Void Stars should be focused down super quick. Make sure if they're targeting you, you don't get hit, otherwise it's going to knock back everybody. And then marks again happen here. Again, I don't have the mark, so I'm standing right behind the green one, and it's going to knock me back.
Okay, now these marks, are they, I guess, similar to the Black Hand mechanic where the person targeted gets hit and everyone around them gets hit, or is it... Why are we stacking people there? Is it a damage kind of spread out?
It's damage, yes, but it's also... depending on damage and how many people are standing, that's the further you get knocked back. So if only one person soaks it, they'll take damage, but they'll get knocked right off the platform, which is why we have 4 people soak. And the second dance here, we have conduit spawning, which is important for the ranged and healers. So you'll see me back out here, get around the corner, and I'm near the edge there. And then we start shifting them out. 2 conduits are dropping. You see me run back in case the conduit spawns on me, because we want to have him in the back there. And then I'm going to run back in. Next ability here will be the Mark of the Legion again. I think this one... no, never mind. Yeah, so again, no mark here. Everyone gets knocked back. Void Stars are spawning. Now this is where it gets tricky. Void Stars spawn, they have to die super quick, and then Infernals. So at this point, you should be saving your cooldowns for Infernals, and this is where they get really hectic, because now there's 4 Infernals instead of 3, so they should be gripped and then stunned in their respective sides. If you're assigned to front left or front right, that's the side you'll be stunning, so they don't move, and at that time we also have the dance. So, again, positioning, that kind of stuff. And this is the fucked up position right now, where you as a melee, you can't die. You see Lurchy just died there because he was too far out, or too far to the boss. This Source of Chaos right now, this one we sacrifice, so we let him die. Don't have DPS, we get to DPS the boss instead. We res the tank. Now Void Stars are spawning again. I mean, even I help DPS them with Hammer and, Holy Shocks and Denounce, whatever. So this one is melee, right? So you see it's directly on me, and I'm standing on that green marker, so it's going to knock everybody else behind. So depending on which way you're standing, it's going to knock you back that direction. And you see Brain Dead got knocked back right because he was to the back right of that green marker.
Yeah, I see.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense than just going through the written guides in the spreadsheet.
But yeah, like that kill there, that one around, that 30 minutes in, that's exactly how we do the boss.
Okay, so aside from positioning and knowing when to switch, it doesn't look like there's really any huge like interrupt rotations or anything like that to be worrying about.
Besides interrupting the
Aside from
Overfiend, the Overfiend is the only one that's that you interrupt.
Yeah.
But go how far in here? Go 28 minutes into the encounter or into my video.
All right, right there.
Okay, so yeah, so we've now 1 sec. Yeah, so that's basically the fight here. So Doomfire, I help DPS the first Doomfire. The fire responds. Obviously, melee can't be standing in it, and that one took a while to kill. But everybody is focused down on the boss, and we have to push him to 70% prior to the first Shadowfell burst happening. Now you see the pillar spawning under his front right foot. Do not get knocked out. Like, don't be standing there. It's going to knock you away. You're going to lose DPS. We're not going to make the push if you're standing there. Same as every other one. So this one we had plenty of DPS. We were able to push just fine. Yeah, we're pushing the boss. Yeah, 70%. Then the Death Caller and this is where you would focus on Death Caller after that push. And now you see me here with chains or the Rot Chaos. It's a rot on me to the focused target. This one here, it's from Relo to me. This one is from me to Relo. So if he shifted himself around, then it might go on somebody else. And now shackles come out. You see range radar has multiple ones. If it's green, you're good. And now we wait to break. Everybody's safe. Then we break them. Death Caller spawns here. You can cleave this one down. We do have cooldowns, but again, it's not a huge DPS race. So we throw sacks. You might be asked for a sack here as well on the tanks. So here we're going to have Rot Chaos coming out. Hopefully I can shift here a bit. So you see right immediately there, it was red on the left side radar screen, so I had to shift out. And basically the way I'm facing right now, again, it's on me red, so I backpedal. I backpedal a few steps back, and I'm no longer in Indigo's Rot Chaos. And that's how you shift out of them. So just right along your line, do not strafe left and right. And at this point, we have the shackles as well. See where I'm standing is totally safe. I'm just going to stand there, wait for them to break, then I'm going to join the raid. Right, rather than joining the raid right away. And that's what I mentioned earlier. You don't want to just follow right away. You do want to play it safe. And don't die, obviously.
Okay.
And yeah, shift out from the dogs. Then the last shackles come out here, around 42%. We are not breaking these. You see Shackle Torments on me right now. Probably should have helped my DP there, not the end of the world, but we transitioned right away. And then the Dark Conduits. And that's basically the fight there. Do you have any specific questions regarding that, the mechanics or any clarification with that one?
No, it's actually seeing you go through the video with it is a lot easier than the way I was going about it, which was just kind of reading and looking at fat boss, because things like that, they kind of tell you how to do it from a raid leader perspective of how you want the raid oriented as a whole. But I guess seeing your point of view and knowing what's going on at each moment, the way that you guys are dealing with it is a lot easier.
Okay, Sham, do you have DPS specific tips?
Yes. Do you want to go back 20 minutes?
Sure.
Yep, popping back.
Okay, so at the very start of the fight, you want to pool to 5 holy power before your first final verdict, which is going to be on that source, or the very first Doomfire I'm in, sorry. That way you get the most damage possible during your first wings. You understand how that would work?
I'm not sure why using 5 on the first, you said the Doomfire that you're going to want to use
Yes. Yep. Because it needs to die.
that? I'm not sure. Just because the way Sparty was just saying it, we want to focus the boss and then try to push him to 70.
That Doomfire still needs to die quickly, though.
Okay. So is it maximizing just because the Doomfire needs to die, or is it maximizing just because of a mechanic with that?
Both.
Like, okay.
Also, Sparty didn't talk about this, but the marks in the very last phase. If you see the video, Sparty was basically positioned in the middle of the 4 markers, so he can cover the most space possible if he needs to run to basically every single position. So you basically want to be in the middle. if you understand what I'm talking about.
Okay.
So basically, if you're DPSing from the front left side and you are marked with the back right side, you have to get there super
You're not going to
quick.
make it.
Yeah, you're not going to make it. So being proactive with your positioning, and something that I mention all the time, assume that ability is going to hit you in the worst friggin' possible spot. So you have to be proactive every second.
Yeah, you need to minimize the amount of distance you need to run basically. And you need to save your judgment for long arm of the law when those markers come out.
All right. And you were just saying that you want to pool 5 holy power on for the Doomfire right after that Doomfire goes down. Are you going to keep just using it on 3 up until your cooldowns fall off, or do you want to keep pulling up to 5?
That's a bit complicated. When you pop at the very start of a fight, when you pop your wings and stuff, it's always a good idea to pool up to 5 holy power before your first final verdict, and that's because your 4-piece is rolling. So let's say if you pop your wings and all that crap, and you use your final verdict at 3 holy power, you're basically using a final verdict at 27 seconds or something into your Avenging Wrath when you only have 3 stacks of your 4-piece, instead of when you use it at 25 seconds when you have 5 stacks. That's maximizing your damage on the final verdict.
Okay, I see what you're talking about with that.
It's a bit complicated, and not a lot of Reds do that.
Yeah, it's definitely something I'll end up picking up, because especially I've seen a lot of my DPS go up a lot too since me and Sparty, I think it was last week, talked about popping Execution Sentence and then waiting like a stutter second before popping the
Sham can explain that better.
Avenging Wrath in order to get your stack to burst with your Execution Sentence burst.
Yes. Why? Why can't you use ES and pop Avenging Wrath at the very start?
Because the way that we went over it and explained it was that it would fall off right before your big burst from the Execution Sentence, so you're losing all that DPS that could be stacked up.
Good. Yep. Exactly. So basically you want ES and then pop rings. I can go over the full rotation for the first 10 seconds is something that's standard for me, but might not be for you. And it's just how to maximize your DPS as bestly or most as possible.
Yeah, that'd be great to go over, because just looking at it, like, there's the small little things that are actually end up being big in your DPS overall.
Yeah, the best... Maximizing is always good, but mechanics always come first. Like, over time, like, I learned how to do both at the same time, and over time you'll probably do the same thing as well. But mechanics is always first, and Sparty stresses this are a lot, and made me the player that I was. But yeah, if you want to maximize, here's the rotation for the first 10 seconds when you're final verdict. If you have like a pen and paper or a notepad open.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to ES, and then you pop Avenging Wrath, and then you Hammer of Wrath at the same GCD. Okay, so you got 1 holy power then, and then you CS or Judgment, depending on if you're still at range or if you're in melee range already. So you got 2 holy power, and then you Hammer of Wrath again. And then you CS or Judgment, whichever one that you didn't use on the second Holy Power generation. So you're at 4 Holy Power now. And then you Hammer of Wrath again. So you're at 5 Holy Power. And then you Final Verdict. And this is going to be at like 24 seconds or 25, something like that. And let's say you don't get a Divine Storm proc. So you're going to be at 2 Holy Power after that Final Verdict. And then you Hammer of Wrath again. So you're at 3 holy power, and then it's about 22 seconds now into your Avenging Wrath, and then you final verdict again at the 20-second mark to maximize your DPS fully.
Okay, now just backing up a little bit, you said over at that 25 seconds right after you use your first final verdict, what if you do get the proc for the Empowered Divine Storm? Are you going to use it right there and then build up, or are you just going to let it sit and then keep going with your rotation until after?
You want to make sure you still get that Divine Storm in during the 10 seconds of your 4-piece.
Okay.
So you want to sit on it as much or as long as possible without screwing up your rotation. But you can screw up your rotation if there is a CS or Judgment coming that you're about to use. Because you always want to weave in our Hammer of Wraths and your other Holy Power generations.
I can't right now.
So you want a Hammer of Wrath, CS, Hammer of Wrath, Judgment, Hammer of Wrath. weaving like that. And if you get that Divine Storm proc at 24 seconds, you want to Hammer of Wrath again, like it's the normal rotation, Hammer of Wrath. And then you probably want to use... It depends what's coming in the fight. If there's ads spawning, you still want to save that DS for the ads, because that'll maximize even more. But you probably want to use the DS then, and then Hammer of Wrath, then Final Verdict.
Okay.
I might be going a bit too fast, but it's alright.
No, I got it. Just abbreviated writing for it. Was there anything else specifically Archimonde that you do for DPS rotation?
Weave in when the dogs spawn and whatnot. Use your weave in your Final Verdicts and stuff like that in DS. DS does if you already know how to do that.
I also saw you did a little, I don't know what it's called now, but back in Kata, I guess, they called it seal twisting. You just kind of like switched over, you quick swapped over to, hold on, let me just go back to the log.
Yeah, seal twisting kind of sucks balls.
Okay. Because it looks like you just went right over to Seal the Righteous real quick. For, I don't know if you were on it for the whole fight, or...
Let's see, where's my log?
That's the one I was looking at right now. So I wasn't sure if you're keeping Seal the Righteous for the whole fight, or if you were looking more for Seal of Truth and then just trying to dot up things the best you can, and then keeping it, or if we're better off keeping one or the other.
Usually it's a DPS loss to seal twitch, or seal swap as much as possible. Like if you want to maximize, you kind of need to think of it as a DPS loss, because you're losing so many global cooldowns they could be using on the boss or something like that.
Okay.
And like fights are so short now that you need every single GCD as much as possible. You need to maximize those, and just seal twisting, makes that crap up. So it's usually not that important.
Okay, so based on that, would you suggest using Seal the Righteous or Seal of Truth?
You can use Truth because you're burning the boss. I usually went Righteousness.
Okay.
Is this for Archimonde?
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, so we went over that. Weaving in for the dogs, and the Truth, and the opener. Was there anything else specific, I guess? I don't know. Are there enough targets out when the Infernals pop to try to weave in for that to get the multi-damage?
Yes, you still want to, yes. 2 or more targets, you still want to DS weave and Final Verdict weave.
Okay, because I've heard a lot of debate. Some people say 4, some people say 2, some people say 3. Others will say don't bother unless it's a straight ad fight.
It's 2.
Oh.
And when the Inferno spawn, when they're coming down, you want to use DP.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's a lot of damage going out. We do have raid cooldowns assigned, but you definitely want to use DP. I think it lines up, every single time.
Yeah, it does. Especially since you're melee, you're going to be mostly in the rough of everything, so...
And just make sure you're not standing directly under one.
Yeah, you're going to be close to one no matter what, because it's hard to keep maximizing your damage on the boss, because we need to burn the boss. So you don't want to run out of melee range. So you're going to get hit by one. So just DP.
Alright, got it. And I think that's all the questions I specifically had, unless there's anything else you guys would like to add.
No, you feel better with Archimonde and stuff?
Yeah, I feel a lot better with Archimonde, especially now going over that.
Okay. But that kind of prep work, like knowing the mechanics, just through guide videos, that's the kind of stuff that you should already know and be well versed. So even though Dark Conduit doesn't really affect you, you should know how that mechanic works, or how the focused or the wrought chaos works, or the shackles and that kind of stuff. You should be well versed on that kind of stuff. But specifics with how we do things, and clarification on how to stand, where to pop cooldowns, that kind of stuff. That's where we're supposed to clarify. But I know you haven't gone to this level of mythic rating before, but that's what the rest of us are doing. Like, we're going to other really good players, and hey, asking them for advice. I go to other really good holy paladins and ask them for advice on rotational stuff or suggestions on certain bosses or trinkets or whatever. Or I'll go to other really top guilds and see what strats have worked really well for them, or what did not, so that we don't repeat the same mistakes. But that the initial grunt work should be done by you. So again, you should know Archimonde and Mannoroth and all these other bosses inside and out, right? Like, you should know what the Wrath does and who it affects and how it is sort of soaked, right? But specifically, like, yeah, we can tell you, soak this many stacks and pop a DP, then pop a bubble. So just make sure you still really get that prep work done, because that, at a very bare minimum, is what we need for Legion.
Okay, I'll make sure I spend a bit more time on that then, especially.
Okay.
Just gonna add on to that. That's fine. You're on my friends list now. I saw you added me.
Yes,
so,
I believe I did.
Yes. So if you have any related questions, just ask me. Like, I haven't rated in a month, but I'm still one of the best there is. So you can just ask me anything.
It's true though, right? Like, him and Soul Sacra are easily the two best ret paladins on the server, and one of the best two playing the game. And we were lucky enough to have Sham. But like Sham stressed, we stress mechanics, and again, it's 10 years of experience saying that the mechanics, the interrupts, all that stuff, that's what kills bosses. We're actually one of the top 10 guilds in the US in terms of execution. We were top 9 last night, but we had a few wipes on Mannoroth. And I mean, we bring buyers too, which makes our executions even worse. So yeah, I mean, we execute really, really well, and that's what kills bosses.
Okay, I understand.
Just gonna tell you a little story, if that's okay. When
Yeah,
I
sure.
first applied to the guild, like, was it 3 years ago or something? I was competing against another ret who was a lot better than me at damage, but I knew how to do mechanics, I knew how to communicate, and I knew how to throw my sacks and my lay on hands and stuff, like when tanks call it. And ultimately, I got the spot instead of him, and all the DPS and stuff that came later.
Yeah. And that's the story I share on stream all the time, but that's exactly right.
Alright, so I'll definitely be keeping my focus to mechanics and making sure I can, as I learn mechanics, get more comfortable. Like, I know it kind of comes out a bit more when we do the heroic carries, where I feel a lot more comfortable with the mechanics themselves, and I'll be able to do a lot more DPS, aside from the fact that it's a jump down. But yeah, definitely will be making sure that I focus on mechanics to be comfortable enough to do that, so I can min-max a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, and like I say, we overgear these encounters by a lot. We're not going to be able to overgear the encounters in Legion. Focusing on mechanics and learning that kind of stuff now is infinitely more helpful. So, assigning you to interrupts and making sure you're able to do them, well, then we know you're able to do them in Legion, and that's going to help us out, for then. Yeah, I mean, just it's mechanics over everything else, positional stuff, and even heroic. Heroic's a good time to practice, but you have to remember that Schomberg and a lot of these other guys have had hundreds and hundreds of attempts at these bosses. You haven't seen the boss yet, right? Yeah. So I mean, we don't expect you to have the knowledge and expertise of hundreds of attempts and wipes, but we want you to quickly catch on, because it is farm now for us. The strat's laid out, all the tips are there, everybody is there and really helpful. So again, ask those good questions, but do that prep work.
Okay, definitely.
Okay?
Yep, thanks a ton, guys.
Cool. No problem.
Yep, see you for raid tonight.
Yep, see ya.
See you guys.